The time has come. Welcome to From Center Ice. My name is Courtney, and oh goodness, friends, tonight is a big night. The Rockford IceHogs kick off their second round playoff series against their I-90 rivals, the Chicago Wolves. Because, of course, like I said before, this was just always going to happen. This is how it had to be. The IceHogs and the Wolves had to go up against each other in the playoffs. It's not like hockey can just give me a break for my sanity for once. If you aren't caught up with the IceHogs playoff run so far, they were in the first round, a sort of play-in round for the AHL this season since they expanded their playoff roster and only the bottom two teams in each division didn't make the playoffs. So the top teams from each division got a first round bye, including the Chicago Wolves because they were at the top of the Central Division. Not only that, but at the top of the league because of course they were. But the IceHogs coming in fourth place in the Central, they had to play in that 3-game series, a best of 3 series. It didn't end up being a 3-game series because the IceHogs beat the Texas Stars in 2 games. Both games were at home. My voice is finally sort of recovering. They won game number 1 by a score of 2-1, and they won game number 2 by a score of 1-0 in overtime. So they've already had a taste of some playoff games this year and some very tight games, and they played very well in those games. But for long stretches of the season, the Texas Stars were kind of in a battle for last place in the Central. Meanwhile, the Chicago Wolves were mostly sitting at the top of the division. Once upon a time, the Iowa Wild were at the top of the Central, and then they didn't even end up making the playoffs. It's been a strange year, but all of that to say that the Texas Stars and the Chicago Wolves are two very different beasts. I mentioned the first round between the IceHogs and Texas being a best of 3 series. Round number 2 and round number 3 are best of 5 series. The conference final is a best of 7, as well as the Calder Cup final. It's a bit different from the NHL, so I just like to refresh you when I talk about it. So game number 1 is tonight in Rosemont. Because they aren't the Chicago Wolves, they're the Rosemont Wolves. Stop lying, Wolvesies! Game number 2 is Saturday night in Rosemont at 7 p.m. Game number 3 comes back home to the Forest City, to the 815, to Screw City, Rockford, Illinois. Down at the BMO Harris Bank Center, that game is at 4 o'clock p.m. You can buy tickets now. Game number 4, if necessary, is once again here at home in the 815 at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And should a Game 5 be necessary between the IceHogs and the Wolves, that shifts back to Rosemont on Thursday night at 7 p.m. So now that we've got that housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about these two teams a little bit. We'll start with the IceHogs. I'll give you a nice little refresher for how their regular season looked. The Rockford IceHogs played 72 games in the regular season, which is of note because the Wolves played 76. The AHL teams played different numbers of games throughout the regular season, which they are going to shift into not doing, but for this season they did, so the standings were based off of point percentage and not just points in the standings. Anyway, the IceHogs played 72 games. They had a record of 37, 34, and 1. As I mentioned, that was good for 4th in the Central Division. I'd say the toughest division in the AHL. There are a lot of good teams here in the Central. The IceHogs ended their regular season on an 0-2 streak with losses to the Milwaukee Admirals, and in the last game of the season, a loss to the Chicago Wolves. That's not an omen for this playoff series. But while they finished the regular season off 0-2, they came into the playoffs and they have a 2-0 record. 2s are wild! In the regular season, the IceHogs scored 223 goals while allowing 221 goals. That means they ended up with a +2 goal differential. And while that might not sound like a lot to you because, you know, it's only 2 goals, The IceHogs were in a negative goal differential for a lot of the season, so that is actually pretty good. It really shows how well they played down the stretch heading into the playoffs. Now for special teams. On the power play, the IceHogs scored on 19.4% of their chances. That put them in 5th in the Central Division on the power play. For the penalty kill, they killed 81.9% of their penalties. That was good for 4th in the Central Division. At one point, I want to say they had like the 6th best penalty kill in the league, but there were some strange games to end out this season where the PK wasn't super hot, so that's why they fell off a bit. Now we shift to the Chicago Wolves regular season. Again, like I said, the Chicago Wolves played 76 games this season as opposed to the IceHogs 72. So those 2 extra games in the playoffs for the IceHogs really aren't a big deal. That puts them at 74 games so far, and that's still 2 less than Chicago, so it's not like there's an exhaustion factor coming in here. Anyway, the Wolves had a record of 50, 16, 5, and 5. They did not lose back-to-back in regulation all season long. And as I mentioned, they ended up as 1st in the Central Division, and they won the McGregor-Kilpatrick Trophy for the top team in the entire American Hockey League. And 2 teams in a row who have won the McGregor-Kilpatrick Trophy have gone on to win the Calder Cup. So that does include the Charlotte Checkers, who did beat the Wolves the last time there was a playoffs in the AHL. But then the Checkers kind of became the Wolves because the Carolina Hurricanes switched affiliations, even though it was in the same state, which I still will never understand, but it doesn't matter here. The roster is completely different. These are not the Charlotte Checkers that won the Calder Cup. These are the Chicago Wolves, the IceHogs' biggest and closest rival, and they are trying to play spoiler. And here is where I must remind you of one of my favorite tweets from the season from my dear friend Elaine Shercliffe. She said, and I quote, I got it right here, "If I'm the Chicago Wolves, the one team in the Central I would want to miss the playoffs is the Rockford IceHogs. Because if anyone would find a way to bounce Chicago, it would be Rockford. True spoilers of the Central Division." I'm just gonna let that sink in for a moment. But anyway, moving on, along with their ridiculously, annoyingly good record in the regular season, the Chicago Wolves ended the regular season on a 3-game winning streak. During the season, they scored 261 goals, and they only allowed 194. That is good for a plus 67 goal differential. Oh god, 67. The Leafs play Game 6 against Tampa Bay tonight. Wolvesies, if you cursed the Leafs, I am never going to forgive you. How about special teams? On the power play, the Chicago Wolves scored on 19.6% of their chances. That was good for 3rd in the Central Division. And for the penalty kill, they killed 83.2% of their penalties. That was good for 2nd in the Central Division. But taking a look at the regular season series between the Rockford IceHogs and the Chicago Wolves, against their biggest rival, their I-90 rival, the Illinois rivalry, the best team in the American Hockey League, the Rockford IceHogs had a record of 8-3-0 and 1. It's just so beautiful. And here it is, my friends. The moment that I am always waiting for and looking for. The moment where I get to remind you of January 7th, 2022. It was a cold winter night down at the BMO Harris Bank Center, but the IceHogs wanted to warm things up just a little bit. 5 minutes and 49 seconds into the first period, Lukas Reichel gets on the board for the Rockford IceHogs 1-0. 1 minute and 46 seconds into the second period, Andrei Altabarmakian gets on the board for the IceHogs 2-0. 4 minutes and 34 seconds into the second period, Chad Yetman gets on the board for the Rockford IceHogs 3-0. 5 minutes and 49 seconds into the second period, Lukas Reichel gets his second goal of the night. 4-0. 14 minutes and 12 seconds into the second period, Jakob Poor scores his 3rd goal of the season, getting on the board for the IceHogs 5-0. 16 minutes and 20 seconds into the second period, Michael Tepley, his first goal of the season, 6-0. 8-0 IceHogs. 8 minutes and 56 seconds into the third period. DJ Buzzdecker with his third goal of the season and assisted by Brandon Peary for his first assist of the season. If you don't recall, he just came back for like a weekend and then left again. 7-0 IceHogs. 9 minutes and 11 seconds into the third period. Cameron Morrison, his first goal of the season. Chad Yetman's first assist of the season. 8-0 IceHogs over the Chicago Wolves. And that, my friends, is what has fueled me. And I will never forget that January night in Rockford, Illinois. But this is not January, this is May, and it is time to make some news stories. But before we turn completely just to the playoffs, let's take a look at the top scorers for the Chicago Wolves during the regular season. I'm not going to go over all of the top scorers for the IceHogs. I already did that in the preview for the Texas series. If you really want to hear that, you can go look at that. Otherwise, just hop on over to theahl.com and look at the stats for the IceHogs for the regular season. Number 1, for the Chicago Wolves, their captain, Andrew Poturalski. In 71 games, he scored 28 goals and added 73 assists for 101 points. He was the leading point scorer in the entire American Hockey League and the first skater since the 09-10 season to hit 100 points. You could say he's pretty good. Number 2 is Stefan Nason. He played 70 games for the Chicago Wolves. He scored 48 goals and added 37 assists for 85 points. He was third in points in the entire league and the leading goal scorer in the American Hockey League. He's also pretty good. Number 3 is CJ Smith. In 60 games for the Chicago Wolves, he scored 24 goals and added 34 assists. That is good for 58 points. A bit of a drop off from 85 to 58, but 58 is still 1 point more than the IceHogs' leading scorer in the regular season, who was Lukas Reichel, who had 21 goals and 36 assists, but he missed time due to being up with the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Rockford IceHogs play less games than the Wolves. He would have beat you, CJ. Number 4, we have Jack Drury. That is a hard name to say. In 68 games with the Chicago Wolves, he scored 20 goals and added 32 assists for a total of 52 points. Number 5 is Josh Levo, former Toronto Maple Leaf. In 54 games, he scored 22 goals and added 24 assists for a total of 46 points. Number 6, and I could use a breeze in here, it's getting kind of warm, but David Gust. In 64 games with the Wolves, he scored 16 goals and added 20 assists for 36 points. Number 7 is Joey Keane. In 62 games, he scored 7 goals and added 26 assists for a total of 33 points. Can y'all hear the dog barking outside? I never know what this mic is going to pick up, but my neighbor's dog is barking. He really doesn't like the Chicago Wolves, and I don't blame him. Anyway, number 8 is Max Lajoie. In 60 games, he scored 4 goals and added 29 assists for a total of 33 points. Number 9, we have Spencer Smallman. In 65 games with the Wolves, he scored 10 goals and added 17 assists for 27 points. And last but not least, we have number 10, Jesper Selgren. In 73 games, he scored 6 goals and added 20 assists for 26 points. 3 of the Wolves' top 10 point scorers are defensemen, so they get offense from the back end, much like the IceHogs do. Very much unlike the Chicago Blackhawks, who did not get a single goal from a defenseman on the power play this year. I'm still not over that. Anyway, there has been a lot of shuffling in the Chicago Wolves net this season due to a bunch of goaltenders getting called up because Antti Raanta and Frederik Andersen of the Carolina Hurricanes were injured for different parts of the season. And the Wolves had their own injuries in net. So the best I can tell is that Alex Lyon will be the starting goaltender for the Chicago Wolves in this series. That could change in the next 3 hours, but that's just what I'm gonna roll with here. Alex Lyon played 30 games for the Chicago Wolves this season. He had a record of 18, 7, and 3. He ended with a 2.16 goals against average and a .912 save percentage, so that's pretty good for the American League. Now hop on over to the IceHogs. I have playoff stats for you because they do have those 2 playoff games, whereas the Chicago Wolves had the first round bye, so that's why I had to rely on regular season. There were not a whole lot of points scored in that series. If you recall, game 1 was a score of 2-1, and game number 2 was a score of 1-0. But I'll let you know who got points anyway. So, the leading scorer in the playoffs for the Rockford IceHogs so far is my boy Isaak Phillips. He is the only IceHogs skater with 2 points. Both of those points are assists, and both of those assists were primary assists on the game-winning goals in each game. Isaak, my man, proving me right always. God love ya. Number 2, we have Carson Gosevich, who ended the first round with 1 goal. That was the game-winning goal in game number 1. Number 3, we have Dylan McLaughlin with 1 goal. That was the game-winning goal in game number 2. Number 4, we have the rookie Lukas Reichel with 1 goal. That was the first goal of the playoffs for the Rockford IceHogs. Number 5, we have DJ Bustecker with 1 assist. Number 6, we have Ian Mitchell with 1 assist. Number 7, we have Cameron Morrison with 1 assist. And finally, number 8, Michael Tepley with 1 assist. Shall we talk about the goaltender? Arvid Söderblom. The man! He played both game 1 and 2 in the first round for the Rockford IceHogs. He obviously had a record of 2-0. He allowed 1 goal all series, stopping 69 of 70 shots. Very nice. Söderblom had a .5 goals against average and a .986 save percentage. He is not the only reason the IceHogs got through the first round, but he might be the biggest one. So let's talk about the keys to the IceHogs winning that first round against the Texas Stars. Obviously, up first, Arvid Söderblom in net. Absolutely huge. He played fantastic. He was seeing the puck. He was finding it really well through traffic, and his rebound control was absolutely phenomenal. There were not many pucks coming off of him at all. The IceHogs are going to need to see a lot more of that from Arvid here in this second round against the Wolves, who are obviously a team who can score a lot of goals. But if he's not giving up a lot of second chances, that is fantastic news. Which brings me to point number 2, and that was the defense limiting the quality of chances that Texas had. While they did get a lot of shots, especially in that second game when they really came out with a push because it was do or die for their season, the IceHogs still did a pretty good job of keeping the Stars to the outside and letting Arvid see pucks. There were a few times when a skater was able to cut in, and that is how they got their only goal in game number 1. It was just a good shot from the inside edge of the face-off circle, and it beat Arvid Söderblom clean. The other team is still full of professional hockey players. You can't really blame anyone there. It was just a great shot. But otherwise, the defense did do a very good job of limiting the quality chances. There was still pretty good quantity, but the quality was fairly low. The team as a whole was also making really smart plays. They had these short, sharp passes going where they would find the open guy, and it didn't have to be a huge breakout pass. It was just they found the open guy who was then able to either skate the puck to safety or skate the puck in and get a good scoring chance themselves. The quality of passing for the IceHogs in round number 1 was very noticeable. It was tape to tape, which isn't something that we always necessarily see from the IceHogs and haven't really seen from them historically in seasons prior to this one. Maybe that's why it stood out more to me. I was like, oh my gosh, they are completing most of their passes. Now, analytics for the AHL aren't very great, but I would love to know a passing percentage here. All I know, it was greatly improved, but they were also doing a good job of clearing the puck out of the defensive zone. They were blocking shots. Curtis Gabriel especially was really good at that. Alec Regula, another guy, him being a defenseman, Curtis Gabriel a forward, but Regula did a very good job with blocking shots, made some really smart defensive plays. I said it in my video after game number 2, but Isaak Phillips and Ian Mitchell were the best defensive pairing for the IceHogs, but a lot of the defense chipped in and did their jobs really well. The IceHogs also brought a pretty physical game against Texas, but they did it in a smart way. They weren't taking cheap shots or dirty hits, but they were using their body to get the opponent off of the puck, get the puck back, and get scoring chances. Even Curtis Gabriel, who had some ill-advised penalties in the regular season for the IceHogs. He had one chance in particular where he just absolutely ran over a guy, but he got the puck back and almost got a goal, but Matthew Murray's shoulder got in the way. And he was very good in net for Texas in that series. But the physicality was ramped up. That's also something we haven't necessarily seen from the IceHogs too much. They have guys here and there who will throw the body around. Dmitry Osipov has been around for a couple seasons now. But that line of Osipov, Curtis Gabriel, and the captain Garrett Mitchell, they were just hitting everything in sight. But it was effective. And not dirty, which is what we love to see. As hockey fans, watching big hits can be so much fun. They can really perk up the team. They can really get the building just absolutely rocking. But you never, ever, ever, ever want to see a dirty hit. I hate seeing players injured. Doesn't matter if it's my guy or if it's the opponent. Some things are bigger than hockey, and the livelihood of these players after hockey is so much more important than a game. So it was very good to see this team come out with that physicality, but they were using it in a smart and effective way. And the team really had a business-like mentality to them when you watched them out on the ice. They weren't taking too many risky chances. They didn't let games get away from them. It looked like they were in complete control most of the time. Again, Texas got their chances. They are a professional hockey team with a lot of very good players. They're going to get their chances too. It's not just one team of hockey players versus a bunch of scrubs. But the IceHogs were able to weather the storm, and they did rely a lot on Arvid Söderblom to lock it down there in net, but once they were able to shift the momentum back in their direction, they were able to hold on to that momentum for a while and really drive the play. They came out and they looked like they had one goal in mind, which was to win that series, and they looked determined the whole time, and everybody on the ice did their job. That was another thing, like the passing and the efficient physicality in this series that really stuck out to me, was there were no floaters in this series. Everybody had a job to do, from the first line to the fourth line to the first D pairing to the third D pairing to Arvid Söderblom in net. Everybody had a job and they all executed on that. It was fun. But of course, the IceHogs aren't perfect. As much as maybe they seem sometimes when I talk about them, they definitely aren't. And there are some places where they need to improve for round number 2 against the Chicago Wolves, the best team in the American Hockey League. And number 1, they need to make smarter offensive plays to match their smart defensive plays. Historically, in the NHL, the Stanley Cup Playoffs, we've seen a lot of low-scoring games, really tight defense. Very much not the case this year, where teams are just scoring at will, basically. But for the most part, in the AHL playoffs this year, we have seen a lot of tight games. There have been a lot of overtime games, and of course, for the IceHogs, 2-1 and 1-0. So this is also just a side effect of it being playoff hockey and scoring is down. But especially in that second game and in the first period mostly, maybe not after they took over and really controlled it from the halfway point of the second and on, but the IceHogs were really forcing plays, and it wasn't working out for him. It mostly just led to turnovers, which went the other way, and then Arvid Söderblom had to make the save in net. Obviously, he did. But you cannot rely on that game plan against the Wolves. I am fully confident that Arvid can come out and play well, but you have to give him a break at some time. So they have to make smarter plays. Sometimes it's just smart to get the puck to the net. Other times it is smarter to hold on to it and cycle the puck, find your open teammates, pass the puck around a bit, get the defense moving, get the goalie moving. And that's another thing from game number 1, which I noticed about the IceHogs, is they were making those smart offensive plays in their offensive zone. They weren't taking the needless shot that maybe could have hit a shot block and gone the other way on a breakaway for the other team. They were finding passing lanes, they were finding shooting lanes, and of course, the loyal fans at the BMO Harris Bank Center always want to see shots and shots and shots and shots and shots, because sometimes shots lead to goals. But they were taking the smart shots, and it worked. In the second game, like I said, they were forcing passes and forcing plays for the first half of the game. They were getting some shooting and scoring opportunities, but there were a lot more frustrating plays than smart plays. And then the second half, it was basically just a shooting gallery for the IceHogs, but that also seemed to kind of work. None of those went in. Obviously, it had to go to overtime. So they need to readjust back to whatever was working there in game number 1 and find themselves somewhere in the middle of those two styles. Don't force the play, but don't maybe necessarily just shoot every time the puck hits your stick. There might be an open guy who can get a better shot. What do I know? I'll be watching from my couch tonight. And on another point, I want to say limit the shots against, but that hasn't been their style of play all season, so I guess if it's not broke, don't fix it, because Söderblom has been able to handle a high shot volume, so maybe just continue working on keeping the scoring chances low and the shot quality low. We all would love to see the IceHogs hold the Chicago Wolves to 10 shots on goal per game, but if all 10 of those shots are high danger scoring chances, then the game could end 10-0. So we might see a lot of shots against again, but we'll see what the quality of shots looks like. And continue to block shots, and block more shots. Help your goaltender out a little bit more. They definitely got better at that in this first playoff round, and they weren't horrible at it in the regular season by any means, but it definitely helps out your goaltender if you're out there blocking shots. Just don't get hurt while doing so. We need all of you. Another big point, and this isn't necessarily something to improve on because they did this well in the first round, but do not let the Wolves get under your skin. Stay disciplined, stay out of the box. There were not a lot of penalty whistles in that series with Texas, a few more in game number 2. There was only one penalty for either team in the first game, but sometimes if a team gets under the IceHogs' skin, it can really derail the whole thing, and then the game just goes off a cliff, and it's just a train to the penalty box, and they can't stop it, and it turns into a disaster. This is how the Iowa Wild beat the IceHogs very often. And while they have a very good and effective penalty kill, don't tempt fate too much. And my last point, I know it's the playoffs, I know depth will win you games, but the top line needs to be a bit more noticeable. Not saying they were bad, because they were not by any means. And not having Andre Altabarmakian on the other wing with Lukas Reichel and Michael Tepley might have hurt them a little bit. And that's nothing against DJ Bustecker, who did find himself on that line, because he also played well. It's just that Tepley and Reichel and Altabarmakian had really good chemistry this season. But even if it doesn't lead to goals in game number 1, I would like to see some more chances from them, and not chances that are being forced, because Tepley and Lukas Reichel had a few odd man rushes in game number 2 against Texas, but again, they were more of the forced plays. Credit to Texas, they defended it very well. There was one play in particular where I don't know who the defender was, but he made Michael Tepley hold on to the puck just a little bit too long, and he couldn't sauce the pass over to Lukas Reichel until he was just way too close to the goaltender, and it didn't end up going in. So again, they weren't bad, and Texas played very well and defended them very well and really did shut them down. But I would like to see a few more chances from that line. I know, they swept the Stars and getting greedy over here, asking for more scoring chances from the top line. But they're gonna need all lines rolling to beat the Wolves here. So my friends, this video is getting very long. If you can't tell, I am very passionate about the matchup and the rivalry between the Rockford IceHogs and the Chicago Wolves. It's gonna be interesting, but like I said, we always knew that this is how it had to be. We shall see what happens in game number 1. I'll be here to go over it after the game. I'm not sure if that video will be up tonight or tomorrow. Like I said, the Leafs also play game 6, so we'll see how both of these games go down. It could either be a very, very good night for me or a very, very bad night for me. But there will be a recap video within the next 24 hours up here on this channel for game number 1 between the IceHogs and the Wolves. So, IceHogs fans, how you feeling about this series? Are there any Wolves fans here? Hello! I do not hate you. There are a lot of very important Wolves fans in my life. Okay, not a lot. There's a couple, but they are very important to me. How are you feeling about this series? Let me know down in the comments. But that is all from me in this one. If you would like to hear more from me or from Center Ice, you can head on over to FromCenterIce.com. There's links to all the places you can find us. There have been 2 new podcast episodes within the last week. There will be be another one up tomorrow from Center Ice Happy Hour. I will also be recording a podcast episode with Mr. Johnny Rockford, who designs all of our graphics and made the intro to this video here, made our logo. He's fantastic. I've had him on the show before. Check out that episode as well if you have some time to kill, because that one was pretty fun too. But there's been a lot of hockey talk here around From Center Ice lately. There's a lot to catch up on, so subscribe to this channel if you are not subscribed yet. Give this video a like. That would make me very happy. All of that being said, thank you so very much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. A second round series between the best rivalry in the American Hockey League starts tonight. We're ready for it. I will catch you all in the next video. Bye, guys.